That might help. Does that do it? All right. It's great to see you all here for this exciting event on scaling climate action through innovation. We have a very dynamic set of presentations and discussions. You'll hear some exciting examples of innovation programs supporting entrepreneurs and startups from around the world, and also hear about the launch of a global clean energy incubator network to work with countries, cities, and communities in all regions. And are especially honored and pleased to have with us the Deputy Secretary of Energy, Dave Turk. Dave has been a leader in clean energy and climate action throughout government and working in the international community. Prior to serving as Deputy Secretary of Energy, he was the Deputy Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, where he led the IEA's work with countries on energy transitions and other technology issues, was a senior leader during the Obama-Biden administration, leading international climate and clean energy programs, including serving as a special assistant to the president and serving as a senior director at the National Security Council, and if that wasn't enough, was also Deputy Special Envoy for Climate. So it's an honor for me to introduce the Deputy Secretary, Dave Turk, and have him share some remarks with us. Thank you.
Do you want me to stay?
Whatever you prefer.
I think I'll stay here in the seat if that's okay to folks. Hopefully everyone can see me and everybody can hear me okay? Great. Well, thank you, Ron, for the introduction, and let me give a special shout out to Ron and all his colleagues at NREL. For those who've not yet been at NREL, our National Renewable Energy Laboratory, it's just a phenomenal group. The facilities are phenomenal, but what's even more impressive are the people, like Ron, like Martin Keller, the phenomenal lab director that we have out there. I've had a chance to visit there. Kelly Speaks-Bachman, who's the head of our energy efficiency and renewables team, helps to coordinate NREL, among other responsibilities, growing responsibilities, given the importance of those portfolios. And I often say about NREL, if you ever start feeling pessimistic that humanity is not able to step up to the challenge, the climate challenge, the renewable opportunities, just spend a day at NREL. If you go a day at NREL, it's better than any kind of coffee or boost in terms of the morale, in terms of your optimism for what's possible. So thanks, Ron, for all that you do and for our NREL colleagues as well. And I want to give a special shout out as well to our colleague here in the middle, to Matt, for doing such terrific work in LA. Such an innovation ecosystem for a lot of things, including on the clean energy side. And a special congratulations to the Cleantech Incubator, Matt, that you and colleagues have been spearheading on that side of things. So what I thought I'd do today, just to lay the groundwork for the discussion here, is focus on two things. One is why innovation is so important. And then secondly, I'll give a little bit more color and texture on the incubator that we're launching here today that Ron highlighted in his brief intro comments. So first on innovation. Why innovation? First of all, I think it's important to underscore, as our Secretary Granholm, our fearless leader at the Department of Energy, has many times, we need to deploy like never before. We've got some existing clean energy technologies that we've been able to reduce the costs, in no small part due to NREL and other labs and other entrepreneurs really driving those costs down. Solar PV, wind, EVs, a range of clean energy technologies, and we just need to deploy like never before on that front. Congress is in the midst of passing two pieces of legislation, one already passed, another to come shortly, that will provide $800 billion. That is a lot of money even for the U.S. federal government, historic levels of investment, deploying grids, deploying EVs, deploying transmission, deploying all kinds of clean energy technologies, especially those that are cost competitive right now. And that is a historic opportunity on the deployment side. But what we need to do is keep innovating as well. We need to deploy and we need to innovate. There's still a number of key linchpin clean energy technologies that are not cost competitive right now. that need further innovation in the laboratory, further innovation in incubators, so that we can get them cost competitive. We can drive those costs down as low as we possibly can. One of my favorite pieces of analysis we did at the International Energy Agency, and see my colleague Mary Warlick, who's the deputy at the IEA, is we need to focus on all the clean energy technologies. The analysis the IEA did is look at 46 different clean energy technologies across the spectrum, not just in electricity, but in transport and buildings, across the range that we need to have to get to a net zero economy. Of those 46 technologies, the IEA analysts found that only 6 of the 46 were actually on track, doing their share to get us to the net zero world, get us to the Paris Agreement targets. Only 6 of 46 are cost competitive. The deployment numbers are where we need them to be. There's a lot more room for innovation we need to undertake for those other 40 technologies. What we've done at the U.S. government is try to organize ourselves, make ourselves much more coherent, coordinated in terms of the vast funding that we have on the R&D side. We've launched a series of what we've called Earth Shots. These are focused on those key linchpin technologies. We've launched our first one on hydrogen to drive to $1 per kilogram on hydrogen. For those who know hydrogen, that is a low cost for electrolysis. We've got a lot of work to do to get there. Long duration storage was our second Earth Shot, reducing costs 80 to 90% from where long duration storage, over 10-hour storage is currently on that end. We've got to drive those costs down dramatically in this decisive decade in front of us. And what's so exciting, now pivoting to the launch of this incubator, is we've got to work with partnerships, public and private, like never before. We've got to leverage our phenomenal expertise in our national laboratories, like NREL. We've got the head of our Argonne National Lab here, Paul Kearns, who's doing phenomenal work in the Chicago area and throughout the country and throughout the world. Argonne has just done phenomenal work. We need to leverage that lab expertise, those researchers. But we need to do it with the private sector in mind. We need to do it with the commercialization opportunities, with the entrepreneurs, with the small companies, with the big companies. And that's exactly what this Global Clean Energy Incubator Network is about. It's a network. It's trying to leverage all of those parts of the ecosystem together. So it's public-private. It's the support via the labs, taking advantage of the phenomenal infrastructure, the phenomenal capabilities that we have at our facilities, and most importantly, the phenomenal researchers that work in our national laboratories. We need to build on the foundation of incubators that we have out there, accelerators that we have out there. We have a phenomenal group of colleagues at the Department of Energy, our Office of Technology Transitions, that focuses on commercialization, focuses on what are the ways that we've learned that these kinds of things work, what hasn't worked in the past, how do we make improvements in incubators regionally and throughout the country. And one part in particular, and this is why I'm particularly glad Matt is here with his established record in the LA community. We've got to work regionally and we've got to work with communities. Innovation doesn't just take place in a vacuum. Innovation takes place in a particular community, in a particular location, where you bring the public, you bring the private together around real technologies that make sense for that community. So we're really excited about this new network, looking forward to getting into the details of it, and really looking forward to making this a reality. So we don't just have a paper partnership and a paper launch. I'm sure you all have seen a lot of launches here at the COP. Some of them you're probably skeptical that will last beyond the COP. This is one, because of the partners involved, because of the commitments involved, I feel very confident we've got a really secret sauce, if you will, putting all these ingredients together in this way, and looking forward to being part of the conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Secretary, and really a huge thank you to you and the department for the incredible leadership that you're providing in driving down the costs and improving performance of clean energy that's making all of our lives better and responding to the urgent climate crisis. So we're going to mix things up. We have a couple folks who couldn't be here in person, so now we're going to see a video by Trish Cozart, who's the manager of innovation and entrepreneurship programs at NREL, and she'll talk a little bit about NREL's programs, but also about this exciting clean energy incubator network. And at the end, I'll I'll dive into more details there. So if we can go ahead with the video.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Turk, for your comments. And I'd like to add to that by talking about change. Change, I guess it's the most common word we will hear used in presentations at this event. Change is one of the easiest words to say, right? We can solve a problem if we all just change. Change the way we work, change the way we eat, change the way we play, change the way we live. But we all know that change is actually easier said than done. And we wouldn't all be here today listening to these recordings and here in person if that wasn't the case. It is human nature to only change the way we are doing things if that change is better, faster, and less expensive than what we were doing before. Hi, I'm Trish Kozart from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, also known as NREL, in the United States of America. And for more than 40 years at NREL, we've been working on one thing and one thing only: change. How do we move to a cleaner, faster, and less expensive way to power the world? In my group at NREL's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, we believe that change we are all striving for comes from two things. First, innovation, the creation and development of new ideas. And second, the economic viability and commercialization of those ideas. We know similar clean tech ecosystems to ours and networks exist all around the world, and some are just waiting to bloom. So today we are excited to announce that we are developing a global clean energy incubator network to connect the world's greatest minds in innovation and incubation practices with each other to accelerate and capture innovation from all corners of the world and speed its way to local, regional, and global markets. The creation of this network, dedicated to providing global leadership in equitable climate action, will accelerate efforts to move critical innovations to market through enhanced collaboration and key partnerships in emerging and developed economies. Based on strong interest from our global partners, the US government and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, we plan to partner with technical institutions, investors, corporations, governments, and philanthropies around the world with the goal of scaling up the development, adaptation, financing, and adoption of low to zero emission clean energy innovations. The Global Clean Energy Network will enable peer learning across all countries while delivering capacity building and technical support for incubators in emerging markets, complementing continued government investments to build local capacity to support startups. In order to be attractive to the brightest minds, a global network will be a powerful mechanism to focus energy, attention, and imagination on designing the best incubators by providing technical assistance and support for entrepreneurs, by engaging funding entities and building confidence in emerging technologies, and by facilitating connections across stakeholders in order to support critical technologies' path to market. Now, in a few moments, you're going to hear from some of the efforts already happening with successful incubation programs from our friends and partners. These are just a few examples of the transformative organizations working to get innovation to market and a taste of the types of learnings that can be shared and capitalized on within a global network. Now, I'm going to put up on a screen the way that you can get in touch with us. To learn more about the network or to get involved in development activities through our working group, please contact us at iec@nrel.gov. Whether you're a seasoned incubation network veteran or an emerging ecosystem just waiting to get started, we will be excited to hear from you as we discover together what we can learn. Thank you.
Great, and we really mean what we say. We're really keen to hear from you, to partner with you, to have us to visit the lab. As Dave said, we'd love to have you there and to work together to share expertise in scaling up support for entrepreneurs around the world. It's now a great pleasure for me to introduce to you Matt Peterson. Matt is the president and CEO of the LA Clean Technology Incubator and the board chair of Climate Mayors, a group of 500 mayors in the U.S. committed to ambitious climate action. He's also the first chief sustainability officer of the city of Los Angeles and has a deep and long history of experience in this space, and we're really excited to hear about your work, Matt.
Thank you, Ron. Audio good? Great. Great to be with you. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. Our organization's a proud recipient of 2 awards in just the last several months from the Department of Energy for VTO, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and our EPIC funding that we got for our incubation pilots. So deeply excited about our continued partnership with DOE, OTT, and all EERE and everybody that's helping advance the President's call to action for equitable climate action. So we're here to talk about innovation today. I'll get into what we're asking for to the world based on my experience when I was with the city of Los Angeles, helping Mayor Eric Garcetti figure out how we put in a sustainable city plan across the board and getting every department involved, not just the utility we own in the city of LA, not just the ports and airports, but the police department, the fire department. And we really thought about how do we accelerate innovation. It's not easy. The bureaucracy of the city of LA is actually worse than the federal government. It takes 464 days on average to get a contract signed after the RFP has been awarded. That's beginning to change, but we know we need to move more quickly with cities to put innovations in place and not let cities just have innovation happen to them. Rideshare, a lot of great innovation around rideshare. Now we know there's an actual increase in net emissions from rideshare. Scooters, fantastic. Micromobility solutions have exploded. Cities had to figure out how to get ahead of that parade and define how those vehicles operated on their streets. So the premise here, not just of our organization, but of our call to action today, is how do we help cities create a sandbox and invite innovation? They're going to meet their needs for the community, for their climate goals, for all the other co-benefits that we know are possible. And as the Deputy Secretary said, a lot of this technology exists, 90% of it probably, and we just need to iterate. How do we innovate and iterate to deploy these technologies? Just before I get into a little bit about our findings from a report we released a couple of years ago, I'll just describe our organization, the LA Cleantech Incubator. We're a very unique, probably the only, as far as we know, incubator in the United States of America that has got such a close partnership with a city. We actually occupy and manage a city building owned by the Department of Water and Power, the largest municipal utility in the United States that is moving to 100% clean energy by 2035. And our strategy to create this inclusive green economy is threefold. Unlock innovation through startups, particularly leaning in to help underrepresented founders, which we need more access to, who need more access to capital and decision makers. Market transformation. How do we send the market signals to entrepreneurs to accelerate progress? So our keystone program there is our transportation electrification partnership that involves the state, our resources board, the mayor of LA, the county, private automakers like Nissan and Audi, BMW, BYD, Proterra, and many others. And then enhancing communities. How do we train the workforce of the future? So we've created cutting edge EV charger maintenance workforce training programs that's even given birth to a rapidly growing startup that is just beginning to change the whole ecosystem. So these are our strategies, these are our priorities on the left, and how we measure our progress on the right. Now on the incubation side, there's a lot on this slide, so I won't go through it all, but really, how do we provide incubation services, non-dilutive funding for pilots, access to debt, and then one other thing that this also infers is access to investment. Now, most people don't talk about debt, but that's why we're in our $50 million Cleantech funds. We're including debt, a $10 million debt fund. It's the first national Cleantech debt fund and probably the only Cleantech debt fund that is affordable and doesn't require personal collateral from founders. Again, removing a barrier for underrepresented founders who may not have the friends and family network may not be able to get in the door with investors that look a lot like me because they're not in their peer network. They're not able to access those conversations. So I won't get into all of it, but you can see our ecosystem and how we try to accelerate progress. So 2 years ago in Madrid at COP25 with PwC and C40, our organization released a report, Accelerating Climate Action Through Startups and Corporate Innovation. Now the corporates don't need our help in terms of the funding and financing, but they need help to deploy innovation in a sandbox. But we're particularly focused on the startup aspect here. So this is just a slide grounding us. Obviously, I don't think this audience needs a lot of education on what we mean by clean tech in cities, but we looked at 3 areas: mobility and goods movement, consumption, circular economy, and then clean energy. But what our findings came up with PwC's research was we could, if we unlocked innovation in this manner, increase greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2035 from cities, 35% in cities by 2030, and create a $5 trillion market. We know there are a lot of challenges in holding us back. I talked about one of them, procurement, and then you've got good rules in place for government procurement. It's hard to pick somebody who may be an earlier stage company through a city or any government procurement process, but we're finding ways to work around that. And this today talks a little bit about just some of the strategies to do that. These are some of the enablers. These are a lot of the tools we use, but the common themes we found in the research of incubators around the world. Startup lifecycle support services, that incubation and coaching, access to funding. Clients and markets, how do you get, if people want to access city market or utility market, how do you get them in front of those decision makers? Pilots, of course, critical. Procurement and data. Other characteristics of high-performing innovation ecosystems, hopefully Ron and his team can use these findings to help inform who do they want to find in this global clean tech incubator network. So this was the punchline of the report. How do we transform city enabling environments by creating these workarounds, or what I call procurement hacks? Cities are at the table, they're part of the decision-making process, but it doesn't have to go through their procurement process. By doing so, they create a sandbox where innovation can be tested, iterated, and if it works, scaled. If it fails, great, we've learned something, and that's something we want to do as well. So here, number 2, how do we help them do that? How do we help startups access these ecosystems? So that's why we called for a $1 billion Clean Tech Cities pilot fund. Third, a new platform for international leadership, and I was really pleased to hear that NREL read our report and decided to create this international network. Now, I don't take any credit for this happening, but we did see the need for this platform to exist, and it's why it's so exciting to us that this network is being launched. So here are our 2 pieces I'll go through here. How do we accelerate equitable climate innovation in cities? So again, we've talked about this $1 billion Clean Tech Innovation Fund we've called for. It would be a source of non-dilutive capital, philanthropic and government sources, followed by debt and investment. So once a startup's technology does prove worthy of continued investment, they can get access to debt for project finance or perhaps first customer costs. Even the federal government sometimes takes a little while to get through the system. They're faster than the city of LA, but a startup who doesn't have access to capital the way others do needs help to transition through that. So it's like a bridge loan sometimes. And then, of course, investment to follow on. And then I'm just going to give an example of what we did in Los Angeles to use this very model to accelerate innovation and how we're using our $50 million in climate funds, some of which we're still raising, as a model. So I'll try to go through these slides fairly quickly so we don't get stuck in a bunch of text. But we created a regional transportation electrification partnership. I talked about that earlier. We set ambitious targets to achieve by the time the world arrives for the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles. One of those targets, along with an overall goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution by an additional 25%, was to get 60% of all the medium-duty delivery trucks throughout the county of Los Angeles, 10 million people, the third largest metropolitan urban economy in the world, and to get 60% of those trucks to be battery electric, we said we need to create a zero emissions delivery zone. So we called upon cities in the region to partner with us to do that. We selected the city of Santa Monica, where it's been the front lines of innovation coming to cities for several years. Scooters probably most predominantly, but now every micromobility solution comes to Santa Monica first, so they have gotten used to figuring out how to work with innovation. And then we put out a call for proposals from corporate and startup innovation to join us. So we've had several major corporations join us and commit to using this zero emissions delivery zone. And now we're seeing a lot of startup innovation coming in. You see Nissan particularly has been a great partner. They brought over their Renault electric van from Europe and branded as Nissan. So we're testing that as the first in the nation commercial EV truck share program with the help of Fluid. Automotus is one of our startups in our portfolio. They're providing visual optical technology. And without this pilot, Automotus would have gotten access to this market. Now they're scaling. They're raising their Series A. I'll talk about how they're now in 2 other cities as well. So we did this pilot. You can see them installing some of the optical technology there, although I think they're doing Christmas lights at the same time. And so we're looking at how do we integrate the curb data. Are these trucks and commercial vehicles actually using the curb appropriately? Santa Monica started with a voluntary zone. So the curb access, they've gotten 20 curbs dedicated for zero emission delivery only. There's signage. That's what they've invested, is the cost of that infrastructure and staff time. Now the city of LA and the Mayor Garcetti's team looked at this and said, how do we scale this? How do we take it to downtown Los Angeles? And they have now done that with 3 curb spaces dedicated that actually they'll do enforcement on. You get a parking violation if your truck is not zero emissions. So a model that we're beginning to scale, and now with the DOE funding from VTO, $3.7 million, we're able to expand what we're doing in the city of LA, city of Santa Monica, and add Pittsburgh, city of Pittsburgh. What's Pittsburgh doing in a partnership with 2 California cities? Well, I think Mayor Peduto arrives today. He will be sure to talk to you about the innovation city of Pittsburgh's been doing. They want to see how we do the same thing. So this isn't just innovation on the coast. This is all of the United States. Excuse me, here's the grant we just talked about and all of those involved and how it's helping us accelerate progress. So with that, I just want to say that we know we need some new capital tools. Actually, our debt fund actually grew out of a DOE grant we got several years ago to look at how do we create that sort of access to capital. We know we need, of course, venture investment. There's a lot of venture out there, but how do you make sure it's the right venture, which is why we're focused on those incubation services with the venture investment. And how do we get those pilot funds in place? So whether it's in LA with our $50 million commitment towards this $1 billion call to action we placed, we look forward to working with NREL and DOE and all of our partners to figure out how we accelerate equitable climate innovation in our cities, not just in the US, but around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for the tremendous leadership that you're providing, not just in LA, but as you said, in cities around the world. And we'd love to work with you to have zero emission delivery zones in every city around the world. So get ready for some calls and requests for advice. I'd like to, we'll switch things up a little here. The Deputy Secretary needs to leave shortly for another commitment. We were going to do Q&A at the end, but I want to just take a break here. If there's a question or two for the Deputy Secretary to give you an opportunity here, and then we'll get back to the agenda.
To hear what you're doing on the international front. As a former State Department economic policy advisor to 2 presidents, can you explain to us how it is that we can accomplish this without undercutting protection of U.S. intellectual property rights and commercial interests, because I personally believe there are ways to do it, but I don't think a lot of people know about that, and I think it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on how we can improve the creation of new tech and disseminate it around the world as we need to solve this climate problem.
So thanks for the question, and thanks for the service at the State Department. I spent 2 different stints at the State Department and a phenomenal group of colleagues working all around the world, just doing terrific work, not only on behalf of the U.S. and U.S. citizens, but on behalf of the world, frankly, given the conscientious nature. So thank you for that. So let me come at this question in the following ways, at least 2 ways and maybe a third way. First way is I'm a firm believer that innovation that happens, whether it's at NREL or Argonne or in the U.S., cost reductions that happen in the U.S. will find their way to other countries one way or another, whether it's licensing, whether it's other arrangements that happen. Likewise, if India does great cost reductions on LEDs, which they did with their bulk procurement, that drove cost reductions and making that technology more available in other countries around the world. So innovation is one of those races that we can all win, and the more we all innovate, the better we reduce costs. It's oversimplifying, but I think it's largely true given the market and given the way things, funding and other kinds of things work in the market. So that's one piece to it. Second piece to it is we have to remember what a huge economic opportunity this clean energy transition, this clean energy revolution has. Our boss, Secretary Granholm, has spoken incredibly eloquent about this. President Biden has said jobs, 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 right? When he thinks about climate, he thinks about jobs. I think we counted up in one of his speeches, he used the word jobs 23 times in the span of a relatively short speech. $23 trillion market opportunity is a huge opportunity for a whole range of entrepreneurs, a whole range of companies, and a whole range of countries who are stepping up to lead this to make a lot of money, right? And I think we have to appreciate and realize that there's a lot of money to be had in a lot of different countries on that end. From the U.S. side, we're making huge investments, the $800 billion that are part of these 2 legislations, and we're going to try to make sure that a lot of those jobs are in the U.S. And we've not done the best job of that in the U.S., and other countries are stepping up as well. I was in India, who are trying to build out their solar PV manufacturing. They have a huge, huge solar industry, huge solar deployment numbers already, and they're looking to do even more of that in India, and they're trying to rightfully have manufacturing that's taking place in India. Similarly, in the U.S. side, we don't want to just innovate and then have companies go abroad. We want to make sure that we've got a significant chunk of that 23. But it's a huge, huge market opportunity for a number of countries, companies, entrepreneurs. So let me leave it there in the interest of time.
So much, Deputy Secretary, and thank you for the excellent question. I think what we may need to do at this point, since you've got other commitments and we've got some other exciting presentations, is we'll move on. But thank you so much, Deputy Secretary, for joining us, for your leadership, and for your support of this Incubator network. And I also would like to really thank the Department of State, Andrew Griffin, Ian Lloyd, and others for your support of this clean energy incubator network. So now we'll move to a second video. We're going to hear from Dawn Lippert, who's going to provide an example from an incubator. Dawn is the founder and CEO of Elemental Accelerator, and will share kind of their experiences as another very compelling model that we're seeking to share and replicate.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm Dawn Lippert, CEO and founder of Elemental Accelerator. Elemental is a global startup program that works at the intersection of climate innovation and social equity. I'm calling in today from Honolulu, Hawaii, where we were first started. And now we have headquarters in Honolulu, in California, and we operate around the world. Elemental, we take a systems approach to innovation. So most people talk about innovation and deployment, which are 2 really important ingredients of the climate crisis and how we solve for it. In fact, it's now estimated that between 25 and 50% of the technologies we'll need to reach our decarbonization goals are not yet commercially available. That's where the innovation ecosystem and entrepreneurs become such a critical part of the future that we need to build. But in addition to innovation and deployment, we've found that the missing ingredient is actually community. Communities are where solutions are deployed on the ground. Climate solutions don't work in a vacuum. They work in homes, in businesses, in schools, in cities, in the real places where cars are driven, where buildings are, where energy is delivered, where food is eaten, all those different places. And as a nonprofit, we have this ability to help start and turn an enormous flywheel of change, combining government, philanthropic, and corporate dollars to push the flywheel forward with an equity-first approach. Through deployment and proving it's possible, in 10 years, I really think the flywheel will be spinning. And people will say, of course every climate deployment has an equity component. It's just how we do it. Climate solutions and social equity are intertwined and can't be separated. Elemental is a late-stage deployment organization that funds first-of-a-kind commercialization projects, many of which come out of the incubators that will be part of this global incubator network and that we're connecting through this new initiative. Elemental fills an important gap in the market for later stage companies that have already raised a couple of $1 million and are ready to go into the market. We've now funded 136 portfolio companies globally over the last dozen years. Those companies have gone on to raise over $4 billion in follow-on funding, more than 50x what we've funded them at, really catalyzing private capital into this market. And how it works is that about 50% of our portfolio companies have worked with Elemental to reach a first pilot and or one of their first commercial deployments. And about a third of the portfolio companies have secured a follow-on contract with their original host customer. So this is really about getting solutions into the market with communities and real customers. I'll give two examples. One is with Ampere, a hybrid electric airplane company, and we funded and deployed their first ever cargo flight between two destinations, actually on Maui in the state of Hawaii. This was the first demonstration of hybrid electric aircraft doing a commercial flight anywhere. Got the next level of certification, and not only showed that the technology works and saves an enormous amount of fuel, but also saw what was important from an infrastructure perspective, what the Department of Transportation had to do, what the utility and city and others had to do to make this possible. That's where the community comes in. A second example is our work with Source Global to scale a water purchase agreement to create water from just sunlight and air without connected infrastructure in places that really need fresh water, and how to finance that without a lot of upfront cost. So the Elemental portfolio is growing, and this is really important to the future of our climate solutions. The portfolio now employs over 3,000 people, and there are almost 1,000 job openings now currently available across all disciplines and levels. We see a huge need for additional talent to come into this space and have been funding interns and fellows within the Elemental portfolio and across the climate technology ecosystem to start building that talent pipeline, particularly from traditionally excluded youth, veterans, and others. We see this as a critical element to solving for climate. There is a huge appetite for this kind of work to ramp up with first-of-a-kind deployments, with our social equity work, with work for youth into new kinds of climate careers. And we're so excited to see the investments that Department of Energy, Department of State, and so many others are putting into the new technologies for climate and the ecosystems that help those technologies be successful in communities around the world. We're also excited about the extent to which community partners are actually being resourced and funded to help support the deployments everywhere that they're needed. We're so excited to see this initiative launch and to be supportive in all the ways we can. So congratulations on the launch, and thank you so much.
All right. So Dawn and Elemental is an outstanding example of how supporting innovation and incubators can benefit all our lives and achieve a socially equitable, youth-driven transformation towards a safe climate and low-cost clean energy available to all of us. And this is exactly what we hope to replicate and promote globally through this global clean energy incubator network. So I'm going to give you just a few overview slides of kind of who NREL is, so you'll be excited to come visit us, and then talk a little bit about this network. So the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, one of 17 Department of Energy laboratories. We're honored to have us here with us Paul Kearns, the director of Argonne National Lab, a sister laboratory. We have around 3,000 employees dedicated to partnering with industry, partnering with universities, over 900 active partnerships, and with world-class testing facilities and demonstration of clean energy on our campus and through our facilities. We work across the spectrum of technologies, the full suite of renewable power technologies, on transport technologies, on efficiency, and increasingly on energy systems integration, to integrate technologies across the power and transport and buildings and industry, and to deliver effective services to consumers and to industry around the world. The Department of Energy laboratories work across the value chain, but are especially focused on basic discovery of scientific and technical challenges, applying that to research on new technologies, and working on applications, on commercialization of emerging technologies in partnership with industry to bridge the gap, to translate new innovations into low-cost commercial products. And this is where, in this valley here, this is where incubators and entrepreneur and startup support programs are so critical. And I'll give you a few examples of NREL programs that we run in partnership with corporations and investors to help ensure that the technologies we develop are rapidly deployed into the marketplace and are available to meet consumer demand. And through this process, we're delivering incredible value to consumers around the world and in scaling up investment. There's a number of Department of Energy and laboratory programs. There's the Energy I-Corps, and the Energy I-Corps has lab folks who work on assignment and with mentors with industry, so that industry is directly advising us what are the technical challenges that we can work on that will help them improve manufacturing processes and have products that will best meet consumer demand. We also run a couple of incubator programs. Two of the biggest ones that we run are the Shell Game Changer and the Wells Fargo IN2 Innovation Incubator. These are programs where we invite entrepreneurs to come to NREL and collaborate virtually so that we can do the testing of their systems in our lab facilities. We can do the simulation, we can do technical due diligence to make sure that they have very high quality technical plans that they can take to investors. We provide the matchmaking with investors. We bring together peers to learn from each other as part of this process. And for example, through the Wells Fargo program, we offer also grants up to $250K to entrepreneurs to develop their technical and business plans. The Wells Fargo Incubator has led to over $1 billion in follow-on financing for clean energy companies. And then we run also an annual growth forum. We're a very open forum to bring folks in who are ready to share their innovative concepts together with investors and together with other corporate partners, and have in-person, last year of course, virtual dialogue about concepts and opportunities for financing and to test new ideas. Would love to have you join for this innovation forum. And this is all about getting technologies, getting solutions deployed into market, creating jobs, and creating high-value services for our communities and our people in all regions. There's a number of other very successful incubator programs around the world. We heard from Matt about the incredible work in LA. Lawrence Berkeley Lab has the Cyclotron Road incubator. We heard about Elemental. Ecolabs is a very successful incubator program in Singapore. The Energy Valley is a Norwegian program that's working kind of throughout the Nordic countries. And there's many more examples. And this is one of the reasons that we're really thrilled to create this network of clean energy incubators to deepen learning across countries. And this is kind of the mission statement here, to kind of work together with you with these incubator programs to accelerate the pace of getting innovations to market through collaboration, through partnerships, and through technical advisory support. We launched this incubator first starting with dialogues with a number of partners and then held a workshop in September with over 50 participants from over 12 countries around the world. And there was very strong enthusiasm for creating this kind of learning and technical assistance platform, especially to provide this critical technology and market validation support. It's often very hard for a small startup and entrepreneur to get access to the latest technical knowledge, the testing facilities, the simulation facilities, and to do the market assessments to really understand applications in different markets. Second, to improve access to investor networks, the networks that Matt has, that Elemental, NREL has, to test ideas, to get their feedback, and to be potential candidates for funding. Third, to offer this peer exchange, so entrepreneurs, investors can learn from each other and have capacity building. And at NREL, we'll offer support, especially to developing country partners who are looking to create or strengthen incubators on the design of their programs to share our knowledge and expertise. And then also through these incubators, we can attract more capital because we can build the confidence in these technologies and these markets and make it even more attractive for investors to participate. This slide we're just highlighting by working together to scale up technology innovation. We can reduce costs, we can mobilize investment, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we can build lasting technical capacity in all of our countries and all of our communities and cities. So how will this network work? In the center, we'll be pulling together leading incubators around the world who are interested in collaboration, not just from the DOE laboratories, but from cities, from universities and technical institutes around the world. We'll have the interaction with governments, the US and other governments, to help advise them on how they can support incubator programs. We'll be bringing in the corporations and the foundations who are potential sponsors, but they also can learn about new innovations, and then working together to provide technical support, peer exchange, linkage to networks of investors. And this, a little bit of an elaboration of the services. So we'll offer technical advisory support to the incubator programs and to individual entrepreneurs. We'll offer the peer exchange, opportunity for testing new solutions at the labs and at local universities in country, the networking and mentoring services, and the scaling up of investment partnerships and confidence building in the technical solutions. You know, at the country level, I have to put my glasses on, a little hard to read from up here on the side here. But we're going to work with the governments in country to try and mobilize grants that could be available, small grants available to entrepreneurs, and also mobilize industry funding. Offer the advisory support to country partners. How do you select participants? How do you design these programs? What kind of testing and technical support can you provide? Try to build up networks and connections to local universities. Provide the third-party validation and testing services, and work together on pitch events, like the investor forums that we run at NREL, and then as support and advice on overall design. And then in addition, we'll work regionally, since there's an opportunity, I think, for countries in similar regions to learn from each other, have peer learning events, work on shared educational curriculum with local universities, to kind of build capacity for entrepreneurs, for investors, sharing best practices. And we'll do this in collaboration. There's a State Department supported program, the Low Emission Development Global Partnership, that has regional peer learning platforms and communities of practice, including one on clean and green recovery that we will link with to promote this learning. So our next steps are to have further consultations with developing country partners to further understand their priorities for cooperation. This will also be linked to the exciting Net Zero World initiative that Secretary Granholm and Secretary Kerry announced here on the 3rd that will work with countries on pathways to net zero energy systems. We'll also talk to other incubator programs to understand how we can best partner, how we can support the amazing work that Matt and others are doing at the city level and that's happening around the world. We'll create some working groups, and so let us know if you'd like to participate, if you have ideas on how we can design this program, if you'd like to join the working groups, if you'd like to join our contact list. And Trish had this information up here, but I'll put it up again. Please get in touch, and we're really excited to work with you on this Clean Energy Incubator Network. And yeah, I think we have a few minutes, and glad to take questions for Matt and for me. Thank you. And there's a mic.
Thank you. I didn't see the beginning, but I wanted to understand can you give us some examples of what type of technology you're incubating? And the second part of my question, what about technology that's not necessarily energy, but things like cross-laminate production? So it's an alternative that's very important for carbon. So what examples can you give me?
Great question. So we've designed this Clean Energy Incubator Network to provide advisory support on the full range of clean energy technologies, whether that's renewable power, energy efficiency, industrial buildings, transport applications, energy use for agriculture. It does have an energy focus, so it does need to focus on assistance on energy issues. The actual work that we would do in an individual country or community would depend on the priorities of that location. So that will really determine what type of assistance we're providing. Is it on transportation? Is it on the latest electric arc furnace technologies in industry? Is it control technologies for buildings? That will depend on the country. The NREL programs that we run cover the gambit of renewable energy, energy efficiency, energy system integration technologies. And Matt provided a really compelling example that you may not have heard about, work on zero emission delivery vehicles as an amazing program. There are other incubators that work outside of the energy space, but that would go a little beyond what we at NREL at least are able to offer assistance on.
Economy as well as zero emissions mobility and goods movement and clean energy and sort of other enabling technologies. So there's some in-between space as well.
Hello. Have you thought of potentially collaborating with some of the businesses that have been giving grants to the small business innovation grants through the other agencies that might be able to take advantage of this?
Yeah, excellent point. Yes, we absolutely. We already work with some of the small businesses that participate in that program, and one of the steps that we want to take as we kind of expand our work globally is to understand for those small businesses what markets are they looking at internationally. How can we help them do the market assessment? Help introduce them to local partners. A big part of the success to work internationally is to find a local partner in India or in Mexico or wherever, and to really make that connection so that you have grounding with somebody who has the experience, understands the local context. So that we definitely anticipate working with those small businesses that are getting support here to help them reach internationally and share their knowledge. But excellent point.
Are you working with the national labs to help deploy or commercialize transfer some of the technologies that they're developing in this space so that entrepreneurs can utilize those to form new businesses?
Yes, too much echo doing it that way. Yes, so not only through this program, but a big part of the National Renewable Energy Lab's work and Argonne's work and work of other labs internationally is about sharing our knowledge of the technologies, sharing the latest performance data, the latest cost data, doing pilot projects, doing local testing to help adapt technologies to the local context. And then through this, the neat thing about this incubator program is in addition to doing that localized technology testing and piloting and adaptation, is now to work with local startups who can help attract capital and develop the services necessary to offer those technologies to consumers in the local context in partnership with U.S. businesses. And we also do a lot of work on market analysis and technical and economic analysis to help identify the potential for deployment of technologies, which then helps attract investment and collaboration. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, I have a quick question. Can you hear me? Okay. When you talk about the incubator projects, I'm wondering, in particular, I work with a community, EJ community, that has identified an entity outside the U.S., but who's done some work on hydro solar panels. In South Carolina, they're doing it in South Carolina because of the issues around water access, right? And then so that we don't have more situations like Flint and Newark. And I'm wondering, are those projects that you would also be interested in incubating, because they're looking at doing some work with some indigenous tribes and also with other communities, EJ communities. It hasn't been done, so is that the sort of thing you'd be interested in too?
Do you want to start?
Start. We've certainly, in Los Angeles, as we look to accelerate transportation electrification, one of the core principles is how do we increase access and equitable opportunities. So whether that's job training, 20% of our graduates are formerly incarcerated, 10% are former oil and gas workers in the transition economy. And then when we deploy pilots, we look at how do we deploy innovations that can serve the core needs. Access to a car in LA is critical to upward economic mobility. A lot of places are heavily polluted, overly burdened, and so loved one needs to take someone to the doctor because they have an asthma attack. How could they do it without spending 2 hours in the bus? So we've deployed EV car share at housing authority locations, and now we're adding e-bike share, and it's dedicated just to housing authority residents, a very underserved population. They don't have access to adequate transit, let alone transportation of any kind. So we're looking to scale that. Congresswoman Nanette Barragan is going to introduce legislation to scale that nationally. And adding the e-bike share, we're going to see if that works. Now, sometimes these programs don't always work, but then how do you iterate? And then we've done startup competitions where we've supported and identified technologies from Africa that probably are more electric motorcycle delivery. You see some iterations of that in the U.S., but particularly in places like Kenya, it's particularly helpful. So we've done both.
Am I on? I would just add that in our work, both domestically, when we're working in New Orleans with the recovery program, and now in Puerto Rico to help them out, and we focus very heavily on ensuring that we're paying attention to energy services for the underserved and for those who haven't had reliable power, and access to energy efficient buildings and transport. And the same internationally, we do a lot of work on energy access programs. But I think and that's a key area we really need to grow and strengthen our efforts. So thank you for highlighting that. And I wonder if we need, yeah, okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Matt. Wonderful to do this together.